Good evening. Tonight we'll be talking about enlightenment and self-realization. Well, good evening, spiritual types. Anybody who comes to a workshop in self-realization and enlightenment classifies as a spiritual type. Yes. Sometimes I can look at these things for hours. Well, in higher planes of attention, you can see eternity in anything. It's not necessarily so hard. Well, tonight, God, anything can happen. But I'm glad you came. Oh, gosh, gee. So nice to see you. Kisses. So you want to know about death, eh? I thought I would dress suitably for the occasion. We're celebrating your funeral. Coming soon to a theater near you. Yes, everyone dies. It's a fact. That sounded good, didn't it? That was very intense and punchy and good way to get... Yes, everyone dies. It's a fact. And then you are reborn again. Big deal. And then you die again, and you're reborn again, and you die again. The average human being has something like 84,000 incarnations. Yeah. Isn't that awesome? 84,000 incarnations. And you're having trouble with one. So tonight, I thought I would make your life a little more difficult, and we would discuss how, within a week or two, in your spare time, you can lose all of the good karma you've amassed over all those lifetimes. Now, I would guess that chances are, if you're here tonight, you've had at least 30,000 or 35,000 lifetimes, somewhere in there. It's just a ballpark estimate. But you want to know about it, you really want to know. You know what you have to go through? Don't ask. If you ask, I'll tell you. It's a long, long, long explanation. But it's funny. That's the thing about life. You see, the chances of you attaining liberation, no, be realistic for a moment, okay? We're down to earth tonight. Let's forget all the spiritual jazz. Let's talk dollars and cents. The chance of you attaining enlightenment is probably better than you realize. No, it's true. Why don't you have such a negative attitude about yourself? Why not feel it could be you? It could be. I wouldn't hold my breath. But it could be. It could be. Krishna, you've all read the Bhagavad Gita and memorized it, I'm sure. Krishna says to Arjuna, at one point he says, Arjuna, do you know where I can get a good strawberry shake? That wasn't in your translation. Krishna says to Arjuna, he says, Arjuna, you know what your chances of attaining enlightenment are like? And Arjuna says, I don't know, man. What do you think? He says, well, 1 out of sometimes millions, sometimes billions attains a full liberation. That's a lot of people. Now, you could, of course, take that very personally and say, well, what chance do I have? The lottery is a better shot, right? But you might have a better chance than you think, because what he's saying is that most people aren't even interested in the subject of meditation, enlightenment, and self-realization. So naturally, they're out of the ballpark. Okay. The first cut. Okay. You've eliminated several billion right there. So your odds have just improved dramatically. See what I mean? That's why you shouldn't be so negative. You see? Yeah. We're talking, of course, of the whole earth. You don't have a chance. But most people on the earth could care less about liberation. So then, how many, I don't know, how many people do you really think are striving earnestly towards self-realization on this planet right now? 5, 6, no. But how many? Oh, thousands, 10,000, 20,000. Oh, there are many people in different religions, and they pray and do things like that, but they're not going through the training process that's necessary. It's a training process that the universe puts you through. In order to qualify, even to get into the pageant, right? You've got to figure you've got to have at least 40, 50,000 incarnations. And otherwise, they don't even look at you. Then you get an audition. And we're talking, you've got to be good. Not necessarily. This is the good news. You see, most people are under the assumption that in order to attain enlightenment, self-realization, we'll talk more about those subjects in great detail later. But in order to do that, most people think that you have to be really, really, really good, a sweetie, mwah, in love with life, little birds, trees, flowers, everything happy. All the time, blithering idiot. Nuclear bombs, wonderful. Pollution, good, God is in all things, yeah. So, dull. God doesn't, God gets bored by people like that. Well, you can't have much of a conversation with someone like that. How are you today? Great. Where can it go? How's everything in your life? Wonderful. A little less cocaine, please. So you want to know about self-realization. Well, you've come to the wrong place. No, the right place. It's someplace. We'll find it. How do you do this? Well, there are different ways. You got your... I'm sorry, I have to go through this. Just bear with me. You got your Zen, right? Nice sounding word, isn't it? Zen, right? Bodhidharma started it out. We'll get him. You got your tantric mysticism. Ooh, that sounds gnarly, doesn't it? Yeah, I like that. Yeah. You got your bhakti, the path of love. You've got your karma, the path of hard work. All those interested in the path of karma yoga, please line up on this pin over here. Hey man, it's the 20th century, man, I can't hassle it. I got a lot to do, man, I just don't have time. Wow. I gotta get dressed in the morning. That takes a half an hour. I gotta take a shower, sometimes I forget to turn the water on. And then it's just but the freeways, man, it takes me so long to get, by the time I get home, I'm too tired to be enlightened, man. It just takes too much energy. You gotta be wealthy, to have the time to do it. So yes, it's true, enlightenment has become a tool of the wealthy and powerful. So yes, so you've got your path of 4 basic paths, count them 4. Path of love, this is ridiculous, I know. The sermon on the couch. Path of love. Oh, sorry. Well, what do you want? A hill around where they're not going to hassle us? Okay, you got... You got your path of love, your basic, right, bhakti. Selfless giving, okay. Path of knowledge, also known as jnana yoga, okay, knowledge, discrimination. And that's the real techie stuff. And of course, mysticism. Those are the big four. Then you have the sub-variants like Zen, which is the path of no mind, okay. The Tibetan rebirth process, okay, techie rebirth experiences in the Bardo. Oh, tantric mysticism, which is sort of living in the world and seeing God in household products. Oh, there's sub-variations. I mean, you've got Buddhism, for example, which is like a combination of various forms, okay? Or you've got Raja Yoga, or there's this, they're all the isms, okay? Taoism, okay? The path of being wet. Sooner or later, one can offend everybody. So, what does this all add up to? It all adds up to a very confusing thing. I mean, imagine a poor little soul that went down to the Bodhi Tree bookstore that was looking for enlightenment, right? Like we had a sincere one. Let's say one floated in from someplace, Cleveland or something. They got off the bus in L.A., right? They heard that, L.A. was a hot power spot, and right? It is, yeah. There's ancient civilizations used to exist right in the Los Angeles area. Mystical civilizations. A lot of spiritual practice going back a long time ago was here, long before the Indians. This is this power spot we live in here. Wonderful place. So let's say somebody in Cleveland had a dream, right? Come to LA, so they take the plane, land at LAX. Okay, they ask, where's the spot? And they say the Bodhi Tree bookstore, right? Because they have, any path that there is in that place, right? They have books on it. So you go down to the Bodhi Tree bookstore, right, okay, and go inside, and then you look around, and what's the poor thing going to do? There are so many books, so many teachers, so many paths. God, I can't even afford half of them. That's the books, right? It used to be simple in the old days. Really, people couldn't read. This is my Zen approach, you understand. So, then what does it matter? See, I'll get you to that point by the end of the evening where you won't care what I say. See, and then we'll be making, that's good, then we will have gotten into another level of attention. Enlightenment. Enlightenment is absorption in eternity. It's to become one with what we call nirvana. There are various stages that we go through in the process. We can discuss it, but you should always remember that any discussion of the process is in no way indicative of it all what it's like, because we're just painting little tiny pictures of eternity. Enlightenment is to become eternity itself, to merge with all of life, all of existence, beyond definition, beyond form, beyond awareness. But yet there is a defined way to do that. Life has a structure. Life has a pattern, it has a weave. And when we understand that way of life, that eternal Tao, the movement of existence, of energy, of consciousness, as we pull back from the veil of Maya, of illusion, we become aware of that which we are. And that is the self, or eternity, nirvana, call it what you will. How does it begin? Well, we have to talk, of course, a little bit about reincarnation. Naturally, if we're going to deal with such a lofty subject, because that's a general cosmology that usually is found in the approach. Reincarnation, there was a time, or there is a time occasionally, when there is no time, there's no life, there's no death, there's nothing but eternal awareness. The self, God, the unmanifest reality is everywhere. And then it gets bored. That's what they say in the books. It gets bored. And so, to give itself some entertainment, right, puts on a video. You didn't like that. Okay, I'll try again. The self creates out of itself infinite forms, worlds, realities, dimensional planes, multifarious beings. Everything that you can imagine and more is existence. That existence will be manifest for a certain period of time. In the East they call it the day and the night of Brahman. The day of Brahman is the creation It's usually measured in yugas, okay, which are long periods of time. And there are these different cycles within a cycle of creation, and finally there's a cosmic dissolution. Everybody goes back, the stage is cleared, the players leave. Everything is empty for a while and it starts again. But that's only one aspect of eternity. Beyond that is something else entirely, and within that is everything. Enlightenment is the study of the particular, of the moment, of feeling, of being human, of having a body, of seeing the world around us. It's the exploration of interdimensional planes of reality, thousands of them, endlessly stretching out. It's discovering that we are not physical beings, but that we have bodies of light that stretch into these other dimensions, and exploring and discovering our different selves that exist in parallel dimensions. It's the experience of Samadhi. Samadhi means the entrance into the supraconscious state, dissolving in a pure white light or clear light of the void, being absorbed in that light over and over and over until all of your impurities, not just the ones in the conscious mind but in the subterranean selves, are completely washed away and you're completely clarified. There's no jealousy, no anger, no possessiveness, no greed, no hatred. All of these qualities are completely washed away even on subconscious levels. Eternity is a hard task mistress. If you set forth on the pathway to enlightenment, then you must experience really a little bit of every part of life. And it's a wonderful, wonderful journey. Meditation is always the key, regardless of the path that you follow. Meditation takes us there. It's the vehicle. Meditation is stopping thought, stillness, erasing the perceiver, the one inside who's watching, who's observing. The personality forms. You're capable of everything. But to do that, you need something that you don't have now, power. The power of the Kundalini, energy, which gradually rises through our being in the process of self-discovery. Self-discovery is so wonderful. I can't believe that people can get through the day without it, because life is so empty and horrible and boring without it. It's really terrible. You're out there and you're alone in this cruel world, and people could care less, and even when they care, it's mostly about themselves. You know, we live in a world of wars and wars alarms. They're building, you know, Star Wars technology so we can pollute outer space now. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's the same old thing. So it appears, but it's not really. And that's the exciting part. One could get very discouraged if you just viewed the world. But the inner worlds are reality. This thing that you see life, where we're born and we exist for a while and we die and we experience some pleasure and some pain, is just an appearance. It's just the outermost surface of all that exists. Life is wonderful beyond comprehension. But in order to experience that, to know that, you have to be called. Hey, shh! No, you have to be called. Something calls you forth. You're out there perfectly content to just like heavily sense out and have a good time with your life, right? And a hand, you know, like the Monty Python hand that reaches down, you know, the big hand comes down and grabs you and pulls you up and says, you are going to follow the pathway to enlightenment. You say, no way. Listen, I've heard all about that. This is not for me. Now look, there's lots of people in the world. You know, you made a mistake. It's the house next door. He's over there now. He prays all the time. He's got beads. He does the incense, the whole thing. You know? I mean, you should just, you know, if I tell you what I do with my time, you don't want me. You don't want to know. I mean, we are talking impure city. Sodom and Gomorrah, that was just lunch. I mean, what goes on in this mind of mine? Boy, I mean, it could wilt flowers miles away. No, I'm not the one. And then the voice says, you. You can argue, you can reason. I tried, we all tried. It doesn't do any good. When your number is up, that's it. They get you. You cannot beat God. It's worth trying, but you just can't. God has all the, God can change the rules on you halfway through. You're playing under a certain system and you think, ha, I won. They say, oh yeah, read your rule book. And you look it up and it's been changed while you're playing in the book. You just cannot beat God. I mean, but you have to try. That's part of it. You've got to, you just got to say, oh, I'm going to resist every step of the way. I'll make it tough for you. Go ahead. That's a sign of a good spiritual person. As you fight every step of the way, it doesn't matter. They get you. So, I'd like to talk a little bit about what's going to happen to you. Because obviously, if you've been drawn to a talk like this, much against your will, to listen to somebody like me, much against your will, obviously your number is up. It's clear. I mean, I just sit at home and meditate and, you know, put out an extremely powerful force and snag people like you to come and listen and get your consciousness expanded for an evening. Then you can go back and trash it and drop the energy. It won't matter. They got you. So my job, they sent me in tonight to talk to you because essentially, they wanted someone to explain to you what's going to happen. You know, they're compassionate. They understand. I mean, the people who run the universe. And they know. I mean, they've been through it themselves. So, you know, you're like the new recruits. So, they just want you to understand what's going to happen to you, and it's really okay, and that God loves you, and, you know, sometimes. But, well, God has other things to do than just love you all the time. I mean, give me a break, you know. But they just wanted, they grabbed me and said, look, your job, you go out and you just explain to them what's going to happen to them, and, you know, they'll feel better. They'll sleep better at night. So I said, oh, well, sure. I mean, I had nothing else to do. Sure, you know, it doesn't matter what I had planned to do with my life. No way, no. Sure, I've got nothing else to do but take my life and go up on stages and talk to people and have people out front with me going, sure, it's fine by me. I don't care. Get married? Doesn't matter. No, that's okay. I can give it up. No, it's all right. No, have children? No, that's right. I never liked kids anyway. You know, my career? Sure. Right. Which one? Which one do you want? I gave up 2, 3 careers. Sure. No problem. For you? Hey, you're hot. I'll do it. But I can't be responsible for their reaction. You know, it's a difficult thing to explain to someone that they're going to die not just once, but again and again and again, and that it's wonderful. Because every death is followed by a rebirth. And I don't just mean in the physical terms of death. When you meditate perfectly, it's a kind of death. And death is a celebration. It really is. People misunderstand death. They're so afraid of it. I don't know why. You've died many times. You don't look any the worse for it. You know? There is no such thing as death. It's an illusion. It's a doorway that we walk through. The question is, how can you beat death at its own game? Well, that's what I'd like to talk to you about. The only way you can beat death is to die before it gets you. Right. You understand. That's what a warrior does. Okay. Wimps, they just, oh, snivel, oh, I'm going to die. Oh. But a warrior is already dead. That's what enlightenment is. Enlightenment is a kind of death. You have to understand, it isn't the big lollipop at the end of the ride. What do you think, you're going to sit around in Glow City all the time? Oh, sure, sometimes there's nothing but infinite light flowing through every atom of your being, and you are that light, and, you know, all the usual Samadhi stuff. But, well, it is complete ecstasy most of the time. I mean, that's fact. I have to be honest about it. That is ahead of you. I don't know how you'll do with it. It's pretty intense to be in ecstatic consciousness 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you know, and the whole bit. You get used to it. Well, it's kind of weird when you glow all the time. You know, I mean, literally, the Kundalini just rolls off my body, and everywhere, you just glow. You can never be in a dark room again. No, seriously. You think I'm kidding? These waves of energy just always come out all the time. You know, it's like, what do you do with it? There must be a way to make money with it. That part I've never worked out. Now, Rajneesh does well at that, I must admit. He's got that part figured. We always run in the red, but what can you do? Anyway, so that was good. I thought that was a good bit there. That put you through a change. So anyway, now wait a minute. Wait, what's going on? So I think we should meditate. That would be a good thing. If you'd sit up nice and straight, please, I'd like to describe a meditation technique. Great. When I meditate with you, I'm going to be going into Samadhi. I'm entering into dissolution. I go away, I dissolve. I'm not much here anyway, most of the time, but not at all then. And what will happen is a tremendous amount of energy, a volume of energy will come through me to you. And also, all of these good folks here tonight are joined together, and we're linking our consciousness. We're creating a psychic network. We're networking our energy. A few people can make a terrific difference. People get very discouraged these days because things don't look too good on the planet. But don't be fooled. A few powerful people can make all the difference. They always have. Even sitting here together tonight, linking our energies in meditation, all these people with all these incarnations of stored power that's just waiting to come out, we send out a force and energy that is part of destiny too. What I'd like you to do is to try and still your thoughts. We'll be doing several meditations tonight to music. I play electronic music to meditate to. You can ignore the music or just flow with it, whatever you prefer. The first meditation I'd like you to do is a meditation on the third eye. The third eye, or the Agni chakra, is located between the eyebrows and a little bit above, right here. Okay? If you just take your index finger for a moment and touch your Agni chakra between the eyebrows and about an inch above. Touch that spot and just press very lightly and close your eyes. Wonderful. Okay, you can let your hand down. The Agni chakra is one of the 7 principal chakras in the subtle physical body, or the body of light that surrounds the physical body. They're doorways that lead us into altered states of attention, into states of enlightened awareness. They all work differently. I'd like you to focus your attention for a few minutes on the third eye and just look at that spot. After a while you may see kind of a glowing light. It looks like the sun or like the moon. It might be different colors. You may see visual scenes, nothing at all. But while you're focusing there, what you're doing is letting the Kundalini flow through you more strongly. And naturally I'm producing a great deal of energy, or it's coming through me, you might say, to alter your attention, to bring you into a spiritual state of attention. Just focus for 2 or 3 minutes and then stop focusing and just let go. And just let the energy take you. When thoughts come in and out of your mind, please ignore them. Just relax and have fun with it. If the energy gets very intense, which it sometimes does when we meditate together, just enjoy it, relax with it. Don't try too hard. Let the energy work for you. Don't try and accomplish any specific aims or goals. Don't use a mantra or anything like that. Just sit there and feel the silence, enjoy the music, and just let the energy fields that emanate from my being spread through you, and all of the energies from all of us here will network together, and we'll have a great time. Good. We'll just be meditating for about an hour and a half. So we'll be meditating for about, 5-10 minutes, something like that, and then we'll talk. Good. Great. And we'll be meditating to some Tangerine Dream. So if you'd sit up nice and straight, close your eyes. Later on you might want to open your eyes and meditate with the eyes open a little bit. But to start out with, focus on the third eye, please. You're all familiar with it. And we're going to be looking through the spiritual eye of vision at eternity, moving from time to the timeless. Don't try too hard now. Just let it go. Enlightenment is not something that happens to you in one day. it's a very gradual experience that takes place actually over many, many lifetimes. Some people are under the assumption that it's sort of a flashbang experience. Not really. It's just each day your awareness becomes more formless. You're less in the world of time and space, less in duality, and a little more conscious of eternity or eternality. But enlightenment does not preclude the physical. That is to say, it isn't necessary to reject the world or commonplace events because enlightenment exists everywhere, in all things, in all experiences. Enlightenment is the awareness of awareness, becoming eternally conscious, waking to life. And those wakings or spiritual epiphanies can occur in the darndest places. Sometimes they occur while you're seated in meditation in a situation like this. Sometimes they might occur while you're shopping in the supermarket or hiking up a canyon somewhere, in traffic, at work, with someone you love, in a terrible situation. Suddenly a moment will turn on itself, it'll dovetail, and it will become eternity. You'll step outside of time. It's not just a question of being out of the body in the sense of an astral experience, but suddenly you'll become aware of the timelessness of existence, of the perfect beauty and stillness of life. Those moments add up as we have them over and over again and more frequently. Gradually, eventually, we become a moment like that ourselves. Someone who's enlightened is like a hole in time. If you're interested in studying, of course, if that's your bent, if you're interested in becoming more conscious, more aware, more beautiful, essentially, if you really like beauty and you'd like to be a very beautiful being, then there are a series of ways to accomplish that. Traditionally, of course, in the books, they say that you should go seek out a teacher. Now, I always wonder about that because I figure these books were written by teachers. So, but, you know, who am I to buck the system? So, I think that you just have to be yourself. That's the most important thing that you can do in self-discovery, is to be yourself, to not try and do your meditation, your experience like anybody else. There are some schools of self-discovery where they tell you that what you should do is, do this practice, and at 6 a.m. you get up, and at 6:30 you wash, and you do the 7 you do, and then 11. And they lay out your whole life for you, and I suppose that works for some people. At a certain phase it can be good. You need the discipline, something like that. But in the more advanced aspects of the self-discovery experience, it's really not necessary to do that. We have a much more fluid way of dealing with consciousness. It's no less intense or disciplined, probably more. But what we're interested in doing is learning to become conscious, not in any particular structured way. As a matter of fact, it's a real pain in the neck for people who have gotten attached to structure. A lot of people have problems with advanced self-discovery because they get so attached to the basic practices in self-discovery in their early years that when you finally run into someone who is a little more demanding and they say, okay, now let's really, you're interested in advanced self-discovery, great, now let's do some things. And you had a picture-perfect idea in your mind of what advanced self-discovery would be like. You figure you're going to sit around and eat bananas all day or something, I don't know. But you have ideas, and it's nothing like that at all. It's different for everybody, but yet there are certain stages or experiences that everyone must go through. Yet your approach to them, the way they happen to you, will be unique to yourself. Do you need a teacher? I don't know. It depends on how you feel. I think the most important thing is to have heart, to have a sense of love and well-being, and then everything will fall in place. If you don't have that, then nothing will really work out for you. What matters is aspiration. It's funny, people want everything, but sometimes they don't want to do the one thing they need to do to make it all happen or take place. And the thing that you need to do is to love, to love, to love, to love. In a new way, in a different way. To to love without strings, without something in it for you. It's frightening at first, I'll agree. It's a little scary to not know where your life is going to go, to not have everything programmed out. Also, of course, my experience, or at least the way I teach, is I feel that people have to be extremely well grounded in the physical world, because having traveled the ashram circuit and that sort of thing, what I have observed is that most people get so up there in their second attention, they get kind of out there, that they lose contact with basic reality. They think they're being spiritual, and all they're doing is ruining their minds and not making much spiritual progress at all. A good sign of a person who has their meditation together is that their life is very successful also. You're able to think and function in the 20th century or on whatever planet you happen to find yourself. It really doesn't matter, because if you can't do that, there's something lacking in the system, you see. So I think it's real important that you be versatile. You don't want to do the same thing all the time to the point where you get stuck in a structure. See, enlightenment is going beyond structure. It's going beyond isms. Religions are great, and forms of self-discovery are great, but the point of them is to take you beyond them and not to get stuck in them. You don't want to get stuck in anything, really, in self-discovery. How do you do that? Well, the secret really has to do with erasing the self, erasing the ego. Now, this is tricky, because there is a need for a certain amount of self to exist in the world. In other words, if you go down the dry cleaners and they ask you, what do you want? There has to be somebody there to say, my cleaning. Or suppose you're out in the world and somebody gives you a hard time. You're just walking down the street, or you're in the store, department store, trying to exchange. Somebody gave you some useless gift, and you're in there and you're trying to exchange it, and they say, I'm sorry, sir, but we can't. And then, or they just, someone starts to take advantage of you because they sense that you're a spiritual type, commonly known as a pushover. See? So they figure, here's someone I can manipulate and give a hard time to. See? So if there's nobody there, you'll just kind of go, oh, gosh, really? Oh, gee. See? So then we have to redefine our ideas, or forget anything we know about enlightenment and God realization and meditation. Just throw it all away and start over every day. Because we're trying to go beyond forms. Yet there's tremendous etiquette in the enlightenment process. It's amazing. It's amazing, the etiquette. So what we're going to do then is we're going to start out with the person you are now. Okay, today, Susie Q. Public, right? You are going to begin the process of self-discovery. Various trumpets sound, archangels descend, and all the usual stuff. And so Susie, oh, really? Me? How wonderful. Sort of the Miss Piggy consciousness. So then, great. The first thing, Susie, it's your first day as a student. Hi, Susie, how are you today? Please sit down, not too close. Right? Yeah, you can be realistic. You don't want to be that close to somebody's energy field, right? They're a beginner, who knows what's in there. I mean, listen, it takes thousands of lifetimes to clear it out, right? Got to go slowly. So, say, now, hi, Sue. Now, look, this is the thing. First thing we've got to work with is your current self. Now, Susie, you have the good fortune of being a woman. However, your good fortune is a difficult fortune because you have been conditioned by the world to think that you are a powerless being who is not very capable of almost anything. And because you're a woman, that's the definition of woman in our society and our world. So Susie, your task is going to be even bigger than the task of the guys because you have more conditioning. The first thing we're going to start with is the conditioning that you've gotten in this lifetime. Now, Susie, I know that you've had a lot of incarnations of spiritual practice, otherwise you wouldn't even be very interested in meditation, and you certainly wouldn't have found me, because I don't work with beginners at all. I mean, you may just be starting meditation in this life, but I only work with people who've had lots and lots of incarnations. doing this. And clearly you have, because that's why power brought you here. Okay, great. I know you've got it all inside you, and you're really frustrated right now because you know you can do things that you just can't do now, and you know that these states of consciousness that you're in and the clothing that you wear, and it's just not what you want. I understand that. You're not chic enough. Inwardly or outwardly, but we can take care of that. But in order to get back all that knowledge that you've already got inside you, the first thing we have to do in the enlightenment process is deal with who you are now and wash away all the conditioning from this lifetime. Once we clear how they've screwed you up in this life, okay, then we can take on the samskaras, the deeper tendencies from your other lifetimes. But of course, every time we clear a level, lo and behold, you'll feel great. You'll feel wonderful. You know, it's like getting a good haircut. And you just walk out and, you know, hey, they did it right, you see? So you'll feel really good. So this is LA talk. So we have to say, now the first thing I want you to do is you got to meditate every day. It's real important. It's more important to meditate for an hour every day than 5 hours every other day. Because you have to start to put little holes in time. Right now, Sue, you're in a world, okay, of desires and emotions and feelings and thoughts, most of which aren't even yours. These are thoughts and ideas and impressions that were given to you. You were programmed by your world and your society to feel, you know, and it all starts with sex. They define you sexually, okay? You're in blue or you're in pink. You're a little boy, you're a little girl. And now they're going to tell you what that means. But obviously the people who are telling you don't have it all that together, because they're not exactly happy, they're not exactly enlightened, they're not having a great time with their lives. They're doing the best they can. But for some reason, power has brought you to this point where you're having an encounter with someone who's gone beyond time and space, and who says that you can do the same thing. It's not that difficult. As a matter of fact, it's your destiny. But there's still certain things that you have to do to make it work. So the first is we've got to set up a meditation schedule. Okay, you need that meditation every day, because in that period of time, whether it's a half an hour or 45 minutes, once or twice a day when you're sitting there, gradually as you learn to stop thought, you'll open a doorway to another world. That doorway will not necessarily close at the end of meditation. That is to say, the light, the Kundalini energy, the power, the beauty, the perceptions of God, all those things will continue to flood through you during the day. So start every morning with meditation. Get up, take a shower, be clean, feel good, sit down and meditate. Because your mind hasn't been active all night, you see. After you've been out in the world and you've been thinking a lot, it's much harder to meditate. So always start the day with meditation. Then run off to work, and during the day now you've got to do some yoga. It's really important. Yoga means union with everything. So what I'd like you to do is watch your mind during the day. And every time you start to think about the past, don't let it happen, because it's gone. And when you think about the past, you're identifying with a person whom you no longer are. Susie, you're anybody you want to be. But you've already seen the movie that we shot about your past, and it was a good movie maybe. Maybe it wasn't. But we don't want to do a rerun. We want to get you in a new take here, okay? So let's forget the past. Every time you think about the past during the day, push it out of your mind. Just say, no. That's your mantra, Susie. Your mantra is no. Every time you start to think about the horrible experience you had, okay, when you were 5, the wonderful experience you had when you were 20, okay, the mediocre experience you had when you were 30, whatever it is, no. We're not interested. We've done it. We know. Thinking about that, Susie, is not going to make you any different. It's not going to change you. Let's not worry about tomorrow, because we all know that tomorrow is going to be a horrible day. Because every day is a horrible day on the planet Earth. It's fact. So we know already it's going to be beat, so let's not worry about it. Let's just assume it's going to be terrible, but we're going to have a good time anyway. You know what Rama says? Rama says, life sucks wherever you go, but you can still have a good time if you know how. And the reason it's going to be horrible, Susie, is because those people out there are not going to leave you alone. They're going to try and mold you and condition you and make you unhappy. They're going to try and drain your personal power, okay, and just reduce you to rubble. They want you to just be another automaton walking around there in a machine-like existence. You're not going to, because they're afraid of women with power. They're scared to death of them. And if you start to get powerful, Susie, you're going to threaten like the whole male power structure. And we got a problem there. So we've got to be discreet about this. We can't let them know. We must consider your wardrobe, Susie. It's real important because the way people project energy towards you, which is half the battle, to be honest with you, depends upon how you look and how you dress. It's very, very important, whether you're a man or a woman, because as an evolved soul, you're very sensitive. You're all psychic, and you pick up energy more than you realize. Most of the thoughts inside you, Susie, are not your own. They're the people around you, but you're a psychic sponge. You've had 30,000 incarnations. You've developed your psychic abilities in past lives. I remember you in Atlantis. You were the one on the left in the temple in the back. You gave me a hard time then. Don't you give me a hard time now. Now listen to me. This time get it right, all right? We don't have time. You know, this is the Kali Yuga. The end of the world is not that far away, so we want to get it together and get out of here. Okay, we got to beat feet. So look, we got to do something. You look terrible. Susie, why don't you wear makeup? You're into holistic health. Big deal. What's that going to do for your enlightenment? Maybe it's nice for your body. Wear a little makeup, okay? Because if you don't, you're going to be picked right out, all right? Wear a little black, Susie. It's a little more powerful. You've got to have a more powerful image as a woman. Your friend Bob over there, maybe he should soften his image a little bit, a little more androgynous. Because maybe he's been defined, they brought him up in a way and told him that you're a guy and you're afraid. It's no good to be a girl. There's something wrong with it. Women are inferior, they're second class. Bob, you can't be like that. Don't be a girl, Bob. Be a man. Right? But they never say that to Susie. They don't say, Susie, don't be a man. Right? So Bob, maybe they've pushed you out in an extreme too, and they've tried to make you into some kind of desensitized macho being that you're not sure you can be tough. Why not? You can be a great warrior, but still be soft inside and unattached when necessary. Actually, you'll make a better warrior. Now, so you got to get this meditation going every day. Great. Okay. We got to work on the wardrobe. It's fun. Okay, we'll go over to Bullock's. We'll get new clothes. That'll be fun. All right. Okay. New image. Now, I know what you're going to buy. You're going to buy the same old stuff again. No way. Okay, we got to go with a whole new image here. A little bit of makeup. That'll be nice. Okay. How's your body doing? You should be getting more exercise, because as you advance and the Kundalini starts to surge through you, your body needs to be in pretty good shape. It's real, real important. Your subtle body is pretty trashed by your experiences in the world. You know, men project just anger and hostility towards women all the time. And so you pick all that up in your subtle body, and it's like acid. You know, particularly when you have sex with somebody, you have to be very careful who you have sex with. Yeah, you can have sex, sure, but you have to be very careful, because men get very threatened by sex, you see. And it's not their fault. It's not their fault. But they were brought up to feel that they have to always be like the raper, the conqueror, or the performer, you see. And so naturally, they feel all this power in you, because women are innately much more powerful than men are. And so there's this need to control. Now, we know that you've been controlling him all along. That's obvious, and not letting him know. That's clever on your part. But the only problem with that, Susie, is that, granted that, he thinks he gets sexually excited, but you're just pushing energy through him and not letting him know, and that male ego just goes for it. But the problem with that, Sue, is that when you do that, you're putting yourself into a duality situation. And also, of course, when you're just pushing it out like that, then you get all this energy thrown back at you. So the sex thing, do whatever you feel is right, but just try and be more unattached about it, and just pick people who don't have so many problems inside, because I can see you've run into a lot of them. Let's see, what else have you got to do? Oh, you've got to just be exposed to more highly evolved people. You should go someplace, and I know you're not a joiner, and I don't blame you. I was never a joiner myself. I'm definitely a loner if I've ever met one. But at the same time, I know that it is a gnarly world out there with all kinds of people who aren't very interested in love and selfless giving. And so we evolved types have to stick together. That's the lesson that we've learned. Because when we don't stick together, they get us every time. When we stick together and we network our energies, then our power is impeccable, and they just cannot trash us. They can't shoot us, crucify us, burn us, French fry us, whatever it may be. They can't get us. But when we all go our own way, I know you need solitude, you like to do your own thing, I'm all for it, but you've got to go find a group of people, what in I Ching they call an organic community of people who you feel good about. Doesn't matter which one, but pick one that you feel good about and be with those people. You need the association. Now, during the day, you've got to learn to be kind to everybody, Susie. I mean, it doesn't matter who it is. I don't care if it's the lady with the dry cleaning, if it's the person who cut you off in front of the freeway. You just have to learn to have more of a reverence for life, because that reverence for life will make you very, very happy. Of course, meditating every day gives you the energy to do this in the inside. But you've got to become more sensitive. I mean, that waitress, Susie, you're a woman, you think you should know. That being a waitress is the worst job on earth. Okay, and you go into that restaurant and she comes over and you treat her like she's just some kind of robot or something. That is a fully sensitive being, a sentient being, an evolution that's standing there taking your order. Don't look at them like they're some arbitrary being. That being has life as much as you do. Feelings. That doesn't mean you have to stare at them with a glassy look. But respect that being. I mean, relate. Just because other people don't doesn't mean that you shouldn't. But at the same time, you have to learn to be inaccessible. Don't tell people you meditate. Don't tell people that you're involved with self-discovery, because they don't understand. You think it's America, California, the 20th century, Los Angeles. Doesn't mean anything. Look who they just elected for president. That was our political note. So, not that there was much of a choice. So, Susie, I mean, life is fantastic, but you've just got to, you got to get your tush in gear here. Now, what else can you do? Well, you could read spiritual books. Now, they're good. If you need to fall asleep and you can't fall asleep at night, read a spiritual book, you're out in a minute. Zone. Who do I recommend? Anybody who makes you high, but I think, there have been some genuine spiritual teachers, a lot of phonies, but there's some genuine. Ramakrishna, can't go wrong. Okay, he's a little heavy with the bhakti, gets a little carried away, but it worked for him, right? But he's inspiring. He was a nut, but he was a spiritual nut. Ramana Maharshi, now that's jnana yoga. It might be a little thick for you, okay, because you might want to run away and just, but you just don't understand what he's saying yet. He was very techy. He was a good one. The Way of Life by Lao Tzu, impeccable knowledge. Shankara, again, more jnana yoga. I like Invoking. But, it's the highest path, jnana yoga. It's a good path. The Tibetans are fun to read. It doesn't matter. Whatever you like, Yogananda, whatever suits you. They were all trying to say something that couldn't be said in words. Most of them didn't write because they were just too gone. You have to understand, Susie, what it's like to be enlightened. I mean, most of the time, Susie, I don't even know, I'm not even here. I'll just be like sitting, and I'm just gone. The Samadhi takes you over. And I just dissolve in eternity again and again, It's tough to, because how can you say, when you are everything, what are you going to say? You read the books where they describe it, and it's real nice, but it's not like that. It's not like that. A few of them have written, because that was what they, that was just how the Dharma worked through them. But most of them don't write, because if you're really meant to get there, when you're advanced, you will find someone who's enlightened. You'll be drawn to them, and you'll hang out together. You will see each other from time to time, and a beautiful interplay will occur between the two of you. See, Susie, if you really want enlightenment real badly, you probably won't get it. Let me give you a hint to start with here. The way to go about it is selfless giving. This is just my opinion. You start out with love. You meditate on the heart chakra, you learn to love, and you just feel this wonderful love flowing through you. But I think the hip way to go about it is not to be so concerned with your own realization. It'll happen when it's supposed to, okay? God's got a computer program worked out, your number's up at a certain pow, right? It'll just happen. What's important is not self-realization, but what you can do for others. That's the emblem of a person who is really ready, who's in the ballpark at all. So Susie, what you need to do is begin to think more of the welfare of others. Like, what can you do for other people? And you say, well, what can I do for other people? And well, there's an easy answer. Smile more, be kinder. You know, you don't have to get up on stage in front of thousands of people and give talks about spirituality. Every life you touch is something. Every energy, every thought you send out affects others. You can be sitting in your room. Susie, I can sit in my room and I can affect thousands and millions of people when I meditate. They'll never know it. They won't know my name. That's fine. Who needs to? What's the big deal? I'm nothing anyway. I know that. But it has an effect, a good effect. Sometimes you don't believe in God, I know. Well, I wouldn't believe in God the way they describe God either. It sounds ridiculous. I mean, you say to yourself, what kind of being is going to make a world like this? With all this horror and suffering, and I understand, it's a difficult thing. But don't look at it that way. You've got to make friends with God. You know, just God has gotten bad press. You know, I mean, men have made God in their image. I mean, God is a man, Susie. What are you going to do with that, right? You know what I mean? And what a start. God's not a man. God's not a woman. God is everything. Everything. We're talking artificial intelligence here. We should do another meditation. This time, I'd like you to meditate not by focusing on any particular chakra or place, but I'd like you to meditate on something, and that something is light. Light is our substance. We are literally made up of light, of energy. When you meditate very well, you will just be nothing but light. You will see that that's all that there is endless light, timeless, ecstatic, perfect light. And that this whole world appearance is just like a movie that you're watching. And that you should be neither attracted nor repulsed by it. Light in life is interesting, but the universe is endless. We're all endless. We are that light. You are God, in essence, and in substance. I'd like you to meditate on light. Now, how do you do that? Well, just by feeling it. You don't have to picture it. You don't have to see vast rays of light shooting through your mind. Not necessary. Meditation is a very quiet, very personable experience. It's very subtle, yet totally powerful in the changes it brings about in your awareness and your attention. So what I'd like you to do is just to close your eyes to start with, and then just to consider light, just to feel it. And as we all do that together, we will invoke a great light, a great energy that will transmute us all, that will change us all forever. If you'd like to, if you do need a sense of focus, I would recommend focusing on the heart chakra, right in the center of the chest, which is the center of love. Sometimes it's very easy if you focus here to feel light spreading through your being. Or you can not focus on a particular point, but just feel light. Imagine a sea of light, an ocean of endless light stretching in every direction endlessly, never beginning and never ending. Nothing but light, forever. When thoughts come in and out of your mind, ignore them. Stop them if you can, but don't get too hung up in them. Just ignore them. Let the meditation take you. Feel the energy in the room shifting. As we meditate together, I'm bringing you through a series of dimensional shifts. Planes of attention are whizzing by you one after another. You're out in space and you're traveling. Some of you are more aware of it, some less, just dependent upon whether you've developed your spiritual sensitivity. But just relax and let it go. As you sit here, you're storing power. When you leave tonight, you will leave with much more power than you came in. How you use that power is up to you. But an evening like this is an evening of great power. So the best thing is just to have happy thoughts, if you must have thoughts, but try not to get too involved in them. Don't judge, don't wonder what you're getting out of it. Leave yourself alone, take a vacation. Just relax a little bit, think of light, and just let go. And you will feel this energy, this light, pass through you and change you forever, actually. Good. Let's meditate for just a few more minutes. Very good. Please sit back and relax. Put up your feet and stay a spell. Yep. Hang out with that Kundalini. Yep. All them chakras are glowing. Yep. Eternity just spinning around your finger. So you can play with light after a while. You know, when you get up in the upper stages of attention, you can just manifest it. Or it manifests you. It's all the same. But you can just, with the movement of a finger, change the tonality of the universe. The thing people forget, I think, sometimes about the Enlightenment process is how beautiful it is, how incredibly beautiful light is. We're made up of light, it's our substance. And as you let go of your attachments, as you fall in love with light, that light just becomes you. And then, of course, you know, you can do some things with it. Some people develop the superpowers, the siddhas, where you can project Kundalini, manifest light, create changes and alter people's attention and things like that. Some people just absorb in nirvana, and that's enough. There's no right or wrong in it when you get up far enough. It's all the same. Just the self is that which you love, and it operates through all of us in different ways. But you got to get your feet off the ground, low-level flying. You got to start. And so many people get incorrect starts. Oh, something's to be learned from it. But there's no singular way. There's so many ways. I'd like to answer some questions for a while that you might have about self-discovery, the Enlightenment process, self-realization. It's such a vast field. And so you may have some particular questions. So if you would raise your hand, I will call on you and perhaps I can answer your question. Say it nice and loudly so I can hear you. I'll repeat the question because doubtlessly lots of people won't be able to hear it. And I'll see if I can answer a few questions. And just try and absorb this energy that's in the room. That's the main thing. The room is pulsing right now with Kundalini. So just let it go through you. You don't have to do anything. It's just absorbing in you. And it'll be part of you. It'll help you. So, I'd like to answer some questions. So if you just raise your hand. Yeah?
Okay, is enlightenment or Buddha nature that very living silence that's in between thought, beyond thought, inclusive to the body form, and thinking itself?
Right. Yes, it's endless light. And as you said, it's the nothingness that's between thought. That's very good. It's that absolute stillness, the satori, you see. There's no thought, there's no self, there's no jiva, no soul, no world, no God, no universe. All of this goes away. That's why we use the term nirvana, meaning the extinction of the flame. But at the same time, it's within the world, within the form. The stillness and the substance are really the same thing. We just use words to make them appear different in duality. So it's wonderful because you can't categorize it. It just is. And sometimes it isn't. And sometimes it isn't at the same time. Right. I agree. Yes. Yes.
These different selves that you're talking about within us, are they different lifetimes?
Very good, yes. Very often when I talk, I say, know yourselves with an S, because there are many selves within the self. And your question is, are these selves from different lifetimes? Yes. Yes, in each lifetime you develop a self and it never entirely goes away. It becomes part of the causal body, and so it's always there. But also, there are selves that aren't just having to do with like particular incarnations that you've had, but let's say they're just part of the structure of the unique being that is you. their deeper voices. Most people don't realize that the surface personality is actually controlled by the deeper selves that are operative in other dimensional planes. And coming to know them is fascinating, yeah. So it's that and something else too, yeah. Questions? Yes?
When I'm out in the world, I kind of have a shell around myself to protect myself against, especially in bad neighborhoods, against men's hatred of women.
Mm-hmm.
Other times, like occasionally in my own home, someone will have a guest over, or right before you came out, someone made a comment and I wasn't protected.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt still into my body. I feel like I'm kind of wasting my time. My thoughts keep going, what I could have said, what I should have said.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a way that I can take care of myself when that happens?
Yeah, as a woman, you're in a very difficult situation. You're in a hostile environment for women, where women are seen as commodities to be traded and exchanged, to be used and abused. And the energy you pick up, particularly as an evolved woman, it's pretty hard to ignore. It's like living in the South, say 20 years ago, when you couldn't go into a restaurant and trying to pretend that wasn't true. It's pretty absurd. You can just feel the hatred towards you if you're black. You see, just because of your color, right? So it's the same thing being a woman. Just constantly, energy is being projected at you that just says you're inferior, you're not capable, or very often you're just hated. It's this understated anger that you've talked about that's there all the time. What can you do to protect yourself? Well, the best thing you can do is, first of all, become more powerful yourself. You have to tap more deeply into your own power, because if more power is generating through you, naturally these things will bounce off more. You won't be so fragile. Secondly, as I suggested, you have to begin to think about appearance. When you're running into people on a one-to-one basis, a lot of the reason they push you or give you a hard time or project energies like that is because they think they can get away with it. You see? So there are ways you can remain a nice person, but Christ said, be like the lamb, but kind of dress like the wolf, appear like the wolf. You need to learn to be inaccessible, not to let people understand your sensitivity unless they would really value that, and project a counter image that is an archetype that touches the consciousness of people and suggests a certain strength and power that people will just not bother with. I mean, it makes a tremendous difference in the amount you'll pick up. Just in terms of, as you said, when you're driving through a neighborhood and you just feel like hostility and anger, what can you do? The best thing is just to try and be at a high level of attention, maintain your sense of humor, and stay pretty grounded. I mean, you have to feel kind of tough, really, because you are. There's this, part of the illusion of the image of women is that they're not tough, you see. And you walk around thinking that, and then naturally you think you're not strong and you can't deal with things, and you can. You're very strong. The very aspect of the Kundalini that manifests through you is raw power. But of course, if you don't know that and you haven't tapped into that, then you're operating on 1/10 of what you have, if that. So it's really, you have to redefine yourself and just learn how, of course, to plug more into that essential energy that's in yourself. The same is true for a lot of men, too. There are a lot of men who are just really nice. But they, in being nice, and realizing that there's an alternative to just being aggressive constantly, sometimes go too much to an extreme, almost to make up for something, and again, they lose contact with their energy and power, too. You can be kind but powerful at the same time. You need to learn how to discriminate from a spiritual point of view to do that. But it really has to do with just unlocking more of your own energy and really redefining your image. I mean, you have to go through your life, you have to go through the people in your life who are defining you in a certain way, even mentally. I mean, they're just holding an image of you day and night. And the closer they are to you, the more powerful that effect is, not in physical proximity, but emotionally. The people you love are the people who hurt you or help you the most, because you're psychically open to them. So you have to take a real look inside the people you're close to and ask yourself, just what's a good question to ask sometimes of everyone in your life? What do they want from me? A real basic question. Because if they're not enlightened, they want something. They may love, they may care, but there's another part in there. If that being is not enlightened, if they are not in a luminous state of attention 24 hours a day, then there's still residual karmas, residual selves in there that haven't been completely worked out. There's selfishnesses, and so they want something. And it's no problem. I mean, people are people, right? So you should expect it. It's just nice to know who you're dealing with. It's good not to be too idealistic about human beings. They're all gods and goddesses walking around. But it's nice to know the deeper structure. So it's good if you could take a good psychic scan of everybody you know. And just ask yourself, what is it they really want? And trust your intuition. That doesn't mean that they're not a wonderful friend and that they don't love you. But like yourself, they have their limitations too. When you understand those limitations, you won't be hurt by them. Then you'll say, okay, of course, I don't expect them to be kind about this or understand this. They're working that out. But I'm not going to let them work it out on me. Follow? You know, this is true whether you're male or female. I mean, it makes no difference. You have to learn, people are more powerful than you realize. And naturally, as an evolved person, meaning someone who's interested in meditation, you are going to naturally know and attract people who are more evolved. And they may not look any different than anybody else, but inside they are. The difference between a soul that's had 40,000 incarnations and one that's had 1,000 in power is tremendous, and their ability to affect your attention level is astounding. Most people's lives are molded and shaped by those around them more than they realize. So it's necessary to step back from everyone in your life inside yourself and just re-examine constantly and ask yourself, is this person, do they love me? Do they care? If they don't, you really don't need them in your life, unless it's just on a business basis or something like that. Do they understand what I'm about? Not that they should have some perfect understanding, but does it matter? You see, because if it doesn't, then you shouldn't expect anything but a little negative energy once in a while. Because they're just looking at their fantasy creation in their mind. You see, it could be you, it could be anybody else. They'll just slip somebody into the fantasy creation model mode. And then they will treat that fantasy creation in a certain way, and naturally when it doesn't live up to the impossible expectations they have for it, then you get the abuse of anger. So you have to, in other words, you have to downplay your expectations a little bit about human beings. Human beings are human beings. This is a planet of beings in relatively early stages of evolution, obviously. There are also some beings, a small number here, who are in more advanced stages of evolution. This is not the way the universe is. The universe has many lower worlds where the beings are in even lower states of evolution. Hard to believe, but true. And many higher worlds where there are beings who are all fully developed, who are all enlightened. There are worlds just of enlightened beings. So don't judge the universe by this, the action on this particular planet. It's not a good representation. But you are in a unique position because, as I said, if you're drawn to a workshop like this, unless somebody handcuffed you and brought you, this means that you have some evolution. That's why you came. You came because of the energy, the power level. The ads really don't matter. Something drew you. It was an inner force. And that suggests that you have a certain amount of evolution. So you're a stranger in a strange land. That's your situation. You live in a world of people who are not as evolved as you. And consequently, some are more evolved. But consequently, you have to learn how to deal with that. And particularly as a spiritual woman, it's really tough. There is a way to deal with it, but you have to be aggressive without being angry. I mean, you have to be a little bit militant, just because the conditioning is so against you. I mean, your back is so against the wall in every way that you have to just be very, very militant and very strong, but not strong in an angry way, because that just dilutes your power and energy. And you just have to tap into the Kundalini more. And remember, this is the planet Earth. What do you expect? Keep your sense of humor about it all. Another question. Yes, sort of back there a little ways in the middle, yeah. Yes?
In meditation, I find myself getting to a point, especially where all of a sudden I feel released and I feel open and sort of hungry for more life. How do you maintain that on an everyday basis more?
You mean, how do you keep that level? Yeah. In other words, how do you stay in that? Okay, sure. When you come and meditate with me, it's easy because I'm just putting out so much energy You know that if you're at all sensitive, you just sit back and you just roll right out, right? No, well, that's why you come. That's my job. That's what I'm supposed to do. If I do a good job, that happens for you, and it opens you up. But also, of course, there's a structural change that takes place in an evening like this. With so much Kundalini manifesting, it's creating a change and creating openings for you so it's easier for you to do this on your own. How do you maintain that level on your own? It's very, very hard. That's why people band together. But there is something that I was talking about a couple of nights ago, and it's the psychic network. There's a network of higher beings throughout the universe on this planet. Also, people who are highly evolved, or beings who are highly evolved, and they network their energies, and that net is there 24 hours a day. 24 hours a day, there's a high-level intensity energy that you can tap into. I'm part of that network. Every enlightened being is part of that network. You can join that network. You don't have to pay any dues, fill out any forms. Wherever you are, all you have to do is open yourself to the network and just feel that there's this luminous edge of eternity, of energy, that we're part of. Naturally, of course, when you're around people all the time who could care less about light, all those thoughts and all those impressions, because you're somewhat psychic as an evolved soul, enter into you. So you need to begin to discriminate between what's your feelings and the feelings of those people in the apartment next to you, in the car next to you, in the city, and so on. And you've got to just go through this process of self-discovery where you just will go back and go through and eliminate all the conditioning from this life. It's a fascinating thing. But the network will help you, is what I'm suggesting. It's real, it exists, and I'm a subscriber. It's like getting the cable hooked in, you know. Lots of channels, lots, more than you can imagine. And the network is there. So when you're out there during the day or at night or whatever and you're cruising around, just think of the network. Just think of it, that energy. And not just in this world, but throughout all the universes, all the dimensional planes, all of eternity. All higher beings are part of the network, this network of light. And they understand the plight of the individual who is just trying to reach higher, and they help. Everyone on the network helps. And if you reach intensely enough, then light will always be there. That's what the network is for, and it's available to any being who seeks light. You need not be alone even when you're supposedly alone. There is no aloneness because the network is always there. But you just have to make the mental effort to think of it, to sit down, to meditate for a few minutes, or just driving your car. Think about the network. You can feel it pulsing, buzzing. The net is always operating all the time through all the universes. And just light will come, and that will help a whole lot. Another question, please. Yes?
The people that they have these thousands of reincarnations as opposed to the 48,000, what were they doing?
Well, not everybody starts the game at the same time. In other words, in the process of reincarnation, we say, well, somebody has 1,000 lifetimes, somebody has 80,000, whatever. It's like school. Why are not all kids seniors in college? Because new kids are, starting school, they're being born, they're starting the process. So new souls are formed, actually. They come forth from the infinite, they combine, and they begin their journey. It isn't as if there's one group that started at the same time. So we have what we call younger souls and older souls. Older souls just means more incarnations. Now, more incarnations does not necessarily mean smarter, but it does mean more powerful. That power can be used in good or ill ways. So, for example, you could have a dictator who oppresses a country, who's obviously a very powerful person, who's had a lot of lifetimes, but those lifetimes have not necessarily been used in the quest of light. Not everyone attains enlightenment. Not all beings do that. There are higher and lower tendencies. There are different pathways you can follow. And one isn't forced, really, to follow. Question?
Comment on the locus. You talked about that in your tape, multi-dimensional lives.
Well, lokas are planes of awareness or attention. They're dimensions. And there are a number of different lokas. There are different terminologies. The Tibetans look at it one way, the Indians another, and so on. But they're all saying about the same thing. They're different worlds. This tiny world, when I say this world, I don't mean just the planet Earth, but the physical universes are just one dimension. And there are many other dimensional planes. They're endless in their size. In terms of the incarnations, I believe that all our incarnations are happening all at once. They're not, I don't believe in progressive time, in linear time. But everything is simultaneous. I mean, there is no beginning and there is no end. Time doesn't end. Time doesn't begin. It's not like that. Just my point of view. Yeah.
Does higher intelligence or higher awareness permit or deny any particular goals you might have, or are you always the captain of the ship?
Well, that's a very good question. Does higher intelligence, the higher intelligence of the universe, permit or deny you any experiences that you might want, or are you always the captain of your ship? Well, it depends. I can give you lots of answers to every question. It depends which dimensional plane I'm answering them from. So in one dimensional plane, I would say to you, no, you were always in charge. Absolutely. You were never forced to do anything whatsoever. And that would be absolutely true. In that dimensional plane, that would be a true statement. In another dimensional plane, though, I could say that there is only the self, which is the doer of all things. And we just think we have free choice, but there is no free choice whatsoever. Then in another dimensional plane, I'd say, well, there's both. The self exists, but at the same time creates free choice. The reason there are different answers is that there is no right answer, because the real answers to these questions lie beyond words. There's something that is understood in that twilight area that we call enlightenment. Because you're dealing with such a process, it's so complex, the way the universe is run, that the level of attention you need to understand it, you have to be so expanded. In other words, you've got a great computer, okay, with fantastic this and that, but you've got an operating system that can't handle it. It just can't process, you see. So that's the situation. You have enlightenment, but right now the operating system that you have can't process all of the information. So what's necessary is to switch operating systems, and you just do it gradually to a slightly more competent one, a slightly more competent one, and so on, until eventually your operating system is the universes themselves, all of it. So it's a little of this, a little of that. It depends what day of the week it is. Yeah? How can you use the psychic network or the, well, that's not it. How can you use Kundalini to make money? That's easy. If that's your interest, the more Kundalini you have, all you have to do is work. I would suggest a career in data processing as a good start. And if you're just somewhat clever, you see, computers are fascinating because the mindset necessary to work with advanced structures in programming and in design is exactly what we do in advanced meditation. It's exactly the same mindset. So people who meditate just find computers to be the easiest thing once they get into it a little bit, particularly the more advanced programming. So if you want to make a lot of money, I mean, obviously that's the area to go into. You'd be a natural for it. But just work real hard at it, and start your own company, and put in 20-hour days, and you'll make a lot of money. Sure. I mean, it's not hard to make money if that's what you want to do. You just have to work twice as hard as everybody else and be clever, and have a lot of personal power, and you can make a fortune. But it just seems to me like there are more interesting things to do with your time. It's good to have a bunch of money. I mean, don't misunderstand me. But endless money, I don't know, unless you have some great selfless plan that you want to help people with and you're inspired. I don't know. I can think of more interesting things to do with the Kundalini. But it's really not hard to make money at all if with Kundalini. I mean, you can take this energy and do anything with it. But the thing we ask ourselves is, of course, what is right? That's the thing. As you progress along the path, that becomes more important than the energy to do what is right. And so we search the self for those answers. And if what you come up with is what is right is to make a fantastic fortune, and that is what is truly right, then that's what you'll do. Because once you ascertain what is right, a tremendous power is unleashed from within you that will accomplish whatever is necessary. So what I advise people to do is, rather than worry about techniques of how to, instead to inquire into the self and gain self-knowledge and determine that which is right. Because once you determine what is right for you, not only will it make you extremely happy and will liberate you, but it will also give you the requisite power and knowledge to do whatever it is you seek to do. Whereas if you just learn the snappy techniques, you'll accomplish it, but you won't be any different. You won't have changed, and it'll just be paper, just empty experiences. But obviously, I mean, the question answers itself. As you have more Kundalini at your disposal, power finds a way. It will happen, whatever you want, whatever you desire. Always remember, my friend, I should tell you this. There's a law in the universe, there's a number of them. One of them that you should know is whatever you want, you get. So be very careful of what you want. Sooner or later, it'll come. If not in this life, in another life. So be very careful. You know, the monkey's paw here, okay? And the other one, of course, is whatever you don't value, you lose. They go together. Questions? One or two more. Hard to see in the spot. Yes? Okay. Well, recognition is liberation. Just realizing that, of course, helps you sort, at least, and you can detect when suddenly you get in. Let me tell you a story. Some friends of mine, some students of mine, recently purchased a house, a married couple, and they've never had problems or disputes over money. They've always gotten along. It's no problem, whether they had a little, whether they had a lot. It was never a big deal, and they've been married for many, many years. They move into this house, right, and they haven't actually even moved in. They buy it, you know, they're fixing it up and stuff and going over to the house once in a while, checking it out, putting new cabinets in, all that sort of stuff. And when they go over there, they start to fight about money. Whenever they're there, they start to fight about money. They start to bicker about money. You know, well, you know, we shouldn't spend this much. He's saying, God damn it, you know. She's saying, but we've got to do it right, you know. And this, you know, this whole thing is going on, right? So they get in a conversation with the woman who, I guess, you know, lives next door or whatever. And she said, oh yes, well the people, you know, the people who had the house prior to the, you know, the tenant who was in here, they were renting it for a while because they couldn't sell it because the market was lousy. The couple, they had a divorce. The reason they had a divorce, well, they fought over money all the time. And the subtle impression stayed in the house, you see. Now, once they saw that, of course, then they said, this is it. And then it was just easy to just, you know, do your simple exorcism of the house, and that took care of it. So, when you realize that you're being affected, it makes it a whole lot easier. When it's tough is when you don't know and you're just sort of depressed or discouraged and you assume it's you, and you don't realize that you're just picking it up from somebody else. That actually you're a happy being and there's not a darn thing in the world to feel bad about, but you're just picking it up. So when you realize that, it makes it a lot easier. Once they understood that fact, that helped a whole lot, you see. And it's harder in proximity. That's a residual vibration in the house, so what they did was just had it totally cleaned, repainted, and, you know, we did the stuff. And anyway, so, but when you have somebody living near you who's putting out a lot of bad energy, this can happen at work, okay, person's desk next to you, it can happen where you live. It's more difficult. You know, if it's real bad, I always suggest that you try and get out of the situation or move to a different place or whatever. If you can't do that, that's not practical. Then the best thing to do is just to strengthen your place as much as possible. Make your house as beautiful or your room as beautiful as possible. Put as much good energy into it. You're creating walls of energy. Keep your place impeccably clean, your closets in order, everything in place. That creates a force, a web, a network of energy around where you live. And of course, by meditating there, and then by being compassionate and trying to understand that that person is just in a certain stage of evolution and that's where they are. You know, that's about the best you can do, really. Just to try not to think about it too much, because if you get angry with the person, you focus on them and more of their energy enters into you. And there's nothing to be angry about. They're just doing what they do. That's the kind of being they are. That's the operating system they have for now. So try and feel compassionate. If you can move, that's the best. If you can't, you try and be understanding, and at the same time, just make your place as strong as possible. Put as much good energy into your home or your place of power as possible, and that will help a whole lot. That's really all you can do. Yeah. Yeah. Well, conditioning is everything that you've been taught. In other words, the conditioning is sexual conditioning. That's where it starts. Meaning that you are a certain sex, and as a certain member of either the male or female sex, you are this and you are not that. Conditioning has to do with language. It's thinking, the thoughts that you're taught, how you view, now this is a good person, Susie, and this is a bad person. Susie, no, you can't wear that dress, it's too short. You see, that's not right. Conditioning is what your parents teach you, society, teachers. But conditioning, that's simple conditioning. More complex conditioning has to do with the way or the nature of reality. In other words, we're taught that this is possible and this is not possible. See, this is real and this is not real. We're given, our whole framework in our minds is supported by our thoughts. But there is another section of our being, the will, which has nothing to do with that, which is open to other worlds, other realities. Very few people ever tap that part of their being, and that's the part of your being, of course, you tap to attain enlightenment and higher planes of attention. But conditioning is the way you see life. When you look at a tree, do you see it, or do you just see your idea of tree that you were taught? Or do you see what it really is? Do you see, in other words, the tree on other planes? What I mean by conditioning is those thoughts and impressions that keep you limited, your consciousness structured to one plane. You can look at a tree, you should be able to see its luminosity, its life forms on other dimensional planes. The reason you can't do that is because you've been taught that it's not there. So we're cut off for most of life by our conditioning. And so the removal of that conditioning is the first step. And then, of course, the deeper conditioning of the samskaras, multi-life patterns, have to be dealt with also. And the way it's really dealt with is just by absorption in the superconscious. I mean, the more you move into light, light just diffuses that and washes that off. And, of course, the recognition that it's there. You don't have to think about it a whole lot. But what you need to do is just move into higher and higher spectrums of Kundalini, of energy. And it's as if they're layers upon you and they're just washed off. It goes away. And of course you have to tighten up your life and see where you're losing power and stop losing power, learn new ways to gain power, luminosity. You know, refocus your life more on light and God and truth and frogs and, you know, things like that. See, there are two principal paths. One is the pathway of light and the other is the pathway of power. Both lead to enlightenment and self-realization, but they're very different ways. In order to follow the path of light, you have to be good. That's the path of the saint, the happy little soul. But you don't have to be good to really get there. There's another way. That's why there's hope. And that's the path of mysticism or the path of power. And that really doesn't have to do so much with morals as with power and its use and its abuse and the structures of power within the self, the systems analysis of power and its uses to change attention and regain luminosity and things like that. There are different ways to attain enlightenment. There isn't just one way, and different ways are suited for different people. Okay, the question is, sometimes you feel that there's a blockage, you say it's a root blockage within the self that you can't seem to get rid of, that's separating you from the light or the self or God or higher consciousness. And you don't understand why you should keep feeling that, because why feel the pain of it since you don't seem to be able to get rid of it? Well, it can be gotten rid of. And just because you haven't done it in the past doesn't mean that you're not about to do it. But obviously in order to do it, you're going to have to do something that you haven't done thus far. Because if you just repeat what you've done thus far, you're going to get the same result. So you have to keep hope in your life. You see, there's just so much discouragement in the world today. You just pick it up. You know, we're entering a very dark time now. You know, we're entering a dark age spiritually. And it really intensifies starting in 1985, and it'll be really tacky from now to about 2015. We're in a 30-year cycle now, in a dark age to begin with, in the Kali Yuga, where it's just very, very difficult for things that would be much easier that you would just look at and say, oh, what the heck, you know, that's going to transform in its own time, and let me just work on a lot of happy things now, and, you know, light is going to take care of it, you see. But instead we just pick up these very negative attitudes and impressions about how difficult it all is, and it's not particularly difficult at all. Chances are we're discussing here a samskara, a multi-life tendency, and that's why it is harder to deal with. It's nice that you can feel it, because if you can feel it, that means that you have a sense of what you have to work on. But now what you need to do is turn your back to it for a little while, because just to keep looking at it is going to frustrate you. It's like trying to take an exam over and over that you fail, and after a while you're going to get so discouraged you'll give up the subject. Let's forget that exam for a while and work on some things that will create a success pattern in your life and give you more energy, so that when you come back to it later, it won't be so awesome. Let's let the self work on it. Don't feel that you're the doer, that you have to accomplish this action. It's the self that does all things. It's just vanity on our part to think that we're capable of anything whatsoever. It's the self that does everything. You take a sharp piece of glass and you throw it in the ocean, and it comes back 2 months later, it's washed up, and all the sharp edges have been smoothed perfectly. When I was a kid, we used to call it harmless glass. You see, that's what the process of enlightenment is. You've got a lot of sharp edges right now, but if you keep throwing yourself into the light, over a period of time, those edges will soften. But please don't expect that it should be done in the order that you like or that you would prefer, because you'll only be frustrated. There is an order that's taking place that's beyond your sight right now, and it's a wonderful order, and that's the order of eternity. But you can open yourself up to it, or you can slow the process down, largely based upon your attitude, to be honest. And the worst thing you can do is just start to feel discouraged, and that it's some kind of insoluble. Nothing is insoluble. Nothing. All things transform. That's the one thing, my friend, you can be assured of in the transitory universe. Nothing will remain. Nothing. It's just a question of when. So the thing to do is have fun in the meantime. Because by having fun in the meantime, instead of knocking your head against the insoluble, you see, Ramakrishna used to say, and some other saints, they used to say that they were really happy when life made them really miserable because it made them cry more to God. And some of them used to just, that's an interesting way to look at a situation too. There are different ways you can play it. You can play it as an opportunity. But I would just feel that you haven't found the way yet. There's a way to cut down any obstacle. You might try making friends with it. That's my method. I make friends with everything. Because you can make friends with your opponents and go out to lunch with them, And you can make friends with your obstacles. You should see that that so-called obstacle is God too. It's just a question of perception here. You've got to loosen your perception up. It's too stratified. You're still thinking too much in spiritual terms. You've got to stop trying to be so spiritual. It's boring. Because when you're trying to be spiritual, you aren't. When you leave yourself alone, you are. You see, you're still in concepts of what is right and what you should be and shouldn't be. Forget it. You're obviously not having enough fun with your life. Good. I'd like to do one more meditation before we close out the evening. I'd like you to focus your attention at the very base of the spine. The Kundalini resides, part of it, at the base of the spine, all the way down the bottom. What we're going to do is very simple. We're going to take the Kundalini energy and just bring it all the way up through the crown of the head, straight on up. But, once you get it up to the top, you don't want to leave it there. Otherwise, you become top-heavy and fall over. So what you want to do is then you want to bring the Kundalini all the way back down. Okay, if you take something out, make sure you put it away. Don't leave it out. If you just bring the Kundalini up all the time, You will go clean out of your mind. I'm serious. The Kundalini can destroy you completely. The Kundalini must be balanced, and if there's too much upflow or downflow, it's checkout time. So, always bring it back. Be polite. So what we're going to do is just feel the energy at the base of the spine. Okay, you may not feel anything, that's fine, just go through the exercise. And just, what you're going to do is imagine a streak of light, or energy or power, moving from the very bottom of your spine, and just in a nice quick flash, just zoom it right up through the top of the head, a few inches above the head. If it wants to keep going, fine. And then, we're going to do the opposite. But when we bring it down, it's not so much a flash, it's like a gentle rain of golden light, trickling its way down through our whole body and our whole being, all the way down. So we're going to go up fast and down slowly. I'd like you to do that for just a couple minutes, and then stop. And that will have released a great deal of Kundalini. Then we'll meditate, ignore thought, or stop thought, or just pay no attention, and just let the energy carry you. So for a minute or two, you're going to be taking the energy, maybe do it 10 or 20 times. 20 is good. Take the energy all the way up. Just imagine it going right up, and then very, very gently radiating just a beautiful light all through your whole being, relaxing you, renewing you. And then we'll do that over and over again, just for a couple of minutes, then stop. Just let go. You may feel light like you're floating or whatever. Ignore thought, relax, and just let go. That's meditation. So how's it going out there, okay? Good. It gets intense, you know. But what the heck? That's what you're here for. How do you attain enlightenment? I don't think you attain enlightenment. It's something that happens to you. It's a hand of cards you get dealt. But there are certain things, that you need. I mean, when we're talking about enlightenment, we're talking about something that's very far out. We're not talking about good meditations or even just experiencing altered states of consciousness all the time. We're talking about merging with the universe consciously, wedding yourself to it, being its bride. It's a big step. You have to give up your humanity, your humanness. You're going to become something other than human. I have a lot of students, and they all want different things. I give a lot of workshops with the public, and I travel, go to restaurants, Denny's sometimes. I see a lot of life. And I don't see people who want enlightenment much. That's not discouraging, it's just how it is. People want pleasure, power. Power is the big one, isn't it? That's what people really want. In this age, power is it. Whether it's power in the physical world or power in the inner world. But how many people really want enlightenment? Because if you really want it, what you've got to go through, it's beautiful, it's not hard, but you have to want it very badly. And you have to want it more than anything. Want it so much that you're willing not to have it if that's what's right. And that's not just a little cute trick you say in your mind, but that's how you feel. I mean, you have to be really clean inwardly. You have to just have total integrity. Work beyond the point of exhaustion. Meditate with your whole being. Live a life that's just perfect. Not perfect in a moral sense. That perfection will take itself in different directions. But perfectly true. To thine own self be true, and it must follow the day, the night, thou canst be false to anyone. So you have to be true to yourself. Enlightenment is not gained by techniques, by wishing, by hoping. It's gained by loving and by giving. and by serving, things that most people really don't want to do too much of, and they're missing all the fun. Because what's fun is not to lead, but to follow. To be a servant of eternity. You know, when you become enlightened, all that means is that you're a servant, essentially. It's not an elevated position. It doesn't mean that you're the king or the queen of the land. It means that you become a servant of all. Because you realize that the real excitement, you know, what's really happening, the techie stuff, from a spiritual point of view, is in service to others. So you have to have a very strong mode of selfless giving. As I suggested, there's another way, the way of power, but even the way of power will take you through the same channels. The difference is, when you follow spirituality, what we call, you know, the yoga of love, the yoga of selfless giving, karma yoga, the yoga of knowledge, you know, all those different things, those different paths. In the beginning, you have to first be good, and then later you become powerful. Because the idea is if you become powerful first, you'll probably abuse the power, create a lot of bad karma for yourself, and just mess things up entirely. So they tell you to stay away from power, and to just be good. Learn goodness, learn humility, purity, integrity. See? On the path of mysticism, which is an equally valid path, I teach both, you know. I follow both. But on the path of mysticism, you do it the other way around. First you become powerful, and you don't worry about being good. And then goodness comes after power. It's a riskier path, you know. But you can do it either way. You have to go through the same changes either way. Remember, enlightenment means taking the self that you now are and dissolving it. We're just going to make you go away. We're going to take a big eraser and erase you. And then we're going to have another self that's similar, just more evolved, a little higher tech. Then we're going to erase that one and do it again and again and again until we reach a self structurally, inwardly. I'm not talking about how you look or how you think, but inside yourself, in the inner worlds, in what we call the causal body, until everything is lined up in a certain way, until you network with all of the universes, till you're an access point between time and the timeless. I mean, enlightenment is not an arbitrary thing. It's not just some state that can't be defined. I mean, there are actual structural changes that take place in the being, the non-physical being, in order for that to be. And the process that you go through causes that to happen. It can be done over lots and lots of lifetimes. It can be compressed. You can go through what you would in many lifetimes in one lifetime. And there are different approaches that you can take. But the point is not to become enlightened. The point is to become luminous. Whether or not you'll become enlightened in this incarnation, who knows? But you can become luminous. You can go very, very high. Enlightenment is, you know, it's the postdoctoral stuff. It's, it's pretty out there. I mean, you have to be willing to take some very large risks, which most people are not willing to take. You have to be willing to face yourself, all the horror within you, all the beauty within you, and then walk away from both and let yourself dissolve. You can't be afraid of dying. You have to, be willing to die many times in life, over and over, and you go through this dissolution process. It's not for everybody, because all the things you want, all the things you love, all your attachments will swing up before you. Each time you're about to go into Samadhi, and everything you love is there. And you know that after Samadhi, that self that was there won't be there again. It's the darndest thing. You'll be somebody else. And so if you're at all attached to any part of that self or anything, if you can't let go and just trust God or the universe completely, you just can't do it. So you have to build up to that point. But even when you get to that point, the most difficult part is, as you become more advanced, of course, you tend to become powerful. Maybe you can manifest a few psychic powers, create falafels in the air, stuff like that. And when you can do that, you start to think you're hot stuff, you see. And big deal, they can do it down the shop, You get out of the falafel shop, do the same thing. So And it doesn't probably take them half as much energy. So, but the problem is you begin, the advanced, so-called advanced spiritual seekers, a real pain in the ass, because, to work with as a teacher, because they have a certain amount of power, so they're not willing to start over. So you have to always be willing to start over. You have to be a perpetual beginner, because that's where the fun is. The fun is being new. The universe is new every day. It's just beginning every moment. But you see, as human beings, when you're into power, once you get power, you're afraid to lose it, because it took you so long to get it. Big deal. So what? If you're everything, who cares? The point was to have a good time. We were only playing Monopoly. It's you who started to think that the money was real. So you have to go back to playing Monopoly. That's all life is. It's a big board game. You get the chance, right? That sort of thing. The community chest and the heavy bucks come in. They send you to the clink for a while. Somebody springs you. It's karma, right? In each life you're accruing karma. You're experiencing in this life what you accrued in your other lifetimes. But you're not bound by it, because now in this lifetime you're accruing new karma, which you will experience either immediately or later in this life or in another incarnation. Enlightenment doesn't necessarily mean an end to lifetimes. Just because you attain liberation, I attained liberation many lifetimes ago, and you come back. We're working on it though. But was this brochure? I keep telling you, they showed me this brochure about this place. They said Vacation Loca. Right. You just have to put in a couple hours once in a while, help a few people, right? Yeah, right. Last time I go to that, interdimensional travel agent, But what can you do? You try and save a buck, right? You go to the cheap one. Bargain Vacation World, my foot. That's why this is my last incarnation, and this one I'm beating feet. There are other places, and this one's going down anyway. So, but you can't necessarily do that, can you? I understand. I'm sympathetic to a certain extent. Well, you got yourself into this mess. You can't expect me to get you out of it. Hell, I can laugh about it, but. What do you want? You're the ones that created the karma that got you into the mess that you're in, right? But you're also the ones that can change that. You can be next to someone who's imbued, with light energy power, and it can all just fall in one chakra and out the other. Unless you really have figured out the error of your ways. And the error of your ways is simply that you didn't love enough. It's not what you do that hurts you, it's what you don't do. What you don't do is love enough. You need to love more. Everybody, all the teachers say the same thing, and no one ever gets it. It's so basic. You need to be wildly, madly in love with life, with God, with, whatever part of life works for you. But it's that love that frees and liberates the spirit. You also have to learn the ways of power, of course. Otherwise you'll be a victim. You have to understand the structure and networking of the universes and the interdimensional planes, because you're subject to all of that, of course. It's a very complex subject, naturally. But the thing that you need the most is to love. And not to worry about enlightenment or nirvana, but rather just to plug yourself into doing good for others and advancing yourself. And if that's really... In other words, if you need a sound structure to start with. You have to define your goals properly, in my opinion. Now again, I'm an old school spiritual teacher, you have to forgive me. But I believe that what you need to do is think about what you're doing before you do it. A little self-analysis can go a long way. It can save you a lot of incarnations. And what you need to think about is what you're here for. You took incarnation in this lifetime for a particular purpose. And you need to ask yourself, are you doing it? And if you're not doing it, no wonder you're not happy. The reason a person isn't happy when they're evolved, a person such as yourself, is because you're not doing what your soul wants. Before you came into the incarnation, there's certain goals that you set. They're not like goals like we think of goals, like, producing 50,000 cars or something. But there's certain things you want to learn or experience. But then when we come in and we're timid, we're afraid, we allow the world to beat us down, the descriptions of the world and so on, and we don't fight hard enough. If you really love, you'll fight for light. Not fight someone outside of yourself, but you'll fight inside of yourself so that you will never settle for anything but truth and clarity inside your own mind. And you're willing to work hard enough because it's fun to be liberated. Every day you meditate, every time you care, every time you love, you take a step into a larger world. You become more of a citizen of the galaxy than a citizen of a very small, confused planet. There's a big universe out there with lots of highly evolved beings who figured out the problems people are having here a long time ago. And you can be part of that world, or you can stay in this one for a long time. That's up to you. And you don't have to follow a religious code, you don't have to follow a particular creed. All that stuff is very backwards. It's good in its place for beginners. But as you advance, that's not necessary. We move into the pure experience of mysticism. You need the actual experience of the clear light. Talk is great, but what you need is to dissolve into that light again and again. That's what creates enlightenment. And also you have to have a feeling of there's more in it than just for yourself. You have to want to put energy back into the system, because if you don't, there can be no enlightenment. It's impossible. There's just not enough evolution in the soul, because an evolved soul knows that you are not just yourself, but you are all of this. And every time you do something for this, it's for yourself. And that's just where the fun is in giving. It's that attitude that's necessary, along with a tremendous sense of humor and a great deal of personal power. And powerful friends help. They always say that associating with the holy is part of how you do it. You burn away some of that. When they say the holy, they don't mean people who are walking around, on Wheaties all day. The holy are some of the weirdest bunch you'll ever meet. I mean, if they're really holy, meaning not that they walk around with Bibles, but if they're really holy, meaning they're intoxicated with God consciousness. I mean, you're dealing, spiritual teachers, if the real ones, or just enlightened beings, or highly evolved beings, are a weird bunch. And they're funny. They're real funny. And they're all very different. They're characters. And they're not particularly moral, nor are they particularly immoral. They don't follow any code or any creed. It's all been passed away. Because once you merge with that light, God is in everything. So what's the difference? You just let the self direct you, because you are the self. So associating with beings like that, obviously you pick up a tremendous charge of energy and inspiration from that. That helps a whole lot. But the main thing is you just have to ask yourself, what did you come here to do? You came here to do something. Not do in the sense of a project, but what did you come here to see, to experience, to learn? That's your project. So anything you accomplish here will be washed away. Everything is transitory in this world. But you came here to have certain experiences, to enlarge yourself, to increase your heart. You want to be like the Grinch. The Grinch who stole Christmas? The old Grinch is not too evolved in the beginning. He's going to rip off all those who's, all that who pudding and who pie. He's going to go for it, that Grinch. But then something happens to the Grinch. He has a little enlightening experience, and his heart grows. That day he's up on the hill, and he's got the poor little dog pulling the sled, and all the who pudding and the who pie and the whole bit, and presents are about to go over the cliff. And the Grinch, suddenly, his heart chakra goes, whong! And he just realizes that there's more to life than, messing up the Who's Christmas. And then I always cry at that part when Boris Karloff is narrating it, and the tears going because then they said, then the Grinch's heart that day grew to the size of 12 Grinches, so and like he pulls the sled back and he goes back and they have a great Christmas and stuff like that, and then they shoot the Grinch. But they cut that part for TV. Well, he needed to move forward to another life, I guess. How far can you go as a Grinch, right? I mean, even a good Grinch. There's structural limitations upon the being. So maybe he'll be a who in his next life? I don't know. Is that a step up? I don't know. Sally who? Yeah. Those who's were bhaktis if I've ever seen them. Yeah. I don't know about all that love stuff. Hey, I'd stay with power if I were you. You can't, that love, you can't trust it. One day you love, the next day you hate. It's just not. Stay with power. Don't get involved with love. Love is the pits. Love is the pits. Power is happening. Because, when you follow the path of love, the dangers on the path of love are excessive. They're just excessive. Because what happens is you don't really love. It's just yourself you're loving. You're not loving outside yourself. It's very selfish. You're loving all the time because it makes you feel good. You see. Whereas when you follow the path of power, then you can do anything for someone. What can you do with love? Love is totally impractical. I would love if I were you. I would always follow the path of love. Love is absolutely the best way. Power has too many problems in it. You can be taken out by it. Listen, this could go on forever, and it probably will, but what I'd like to do is end with just a very brief 2 or 3 minute meditation, but I want to really take you over the top with energy, okay? This is the last public workshop in our series. I won't be doing any more till next September in Los Angeles, so it's 9 months. So this is the last minute of it. So sort of the moment of power at the end of the series at that in 1985, the whole bit. So for the last few minutes, I'd like to just sort of take you away someplace, put you out for a while, make it difficult for you to walk later, the usual. Now, I'd like you in this meditation to, at least part of the time, keep your eyes open and watch. I'm going to be doing some of those mudras again. And essentially what I'm doing is taking the energy of the Kundalini. It can be done 2 ways. One can just sit, as I was before, and be absorbed in Samadhi and dissolve. I go beyond the form and the formless and just dissolve in eternity. And you could say, why would you want to do anything else other than that? Well, that's wonderful, and the Kundalini radiates to everyone. But there are other types of power that can be transferred to people that will aid them in their self-discovery that can't be transferred that way. And they're transferred through what we call the siddhas. The siddhas are not just miraculous powers to dazzle and entertain, but the siddhas are the opening of interdimensional planes of reality whereby certain energies and strands of luminosity are brought through. We actually open those dimensional planes and bring energies through and infuse them into people. That's really what spiritual teaching is all about. It doesn't have that much to do with words, but it's the transfer of energy and power. So when we do it with the siddhas, we use the body because the body is part of the earth. And these are powers of the earth or of the material universe. They're high-tech spiritual powers, but they're of a different order than the superconscious. The superconscious is just the absorption in nirvana, the stillness. This is samadhi. Dissolution. The siddhas are different. It's applied power. So that's what I'm going to be doing. And the reason I have you watch is because what you're doing is focusing your attention. It's like you're aiming. But never watch too hard, because you need to be meditating, clearing your mind. But it's like daydreaming. It's what we call gazing. It's a different practice than meditating. You don't want to look directly. If you look too hard, you'll focus too hard and you'll focus too much on the physical. You want to have a very diffuse gaze. You're just looking very generally at the stage. And I'll be doing a series of movements. Sometimes it looks like Tai Chi sometimes. It's really what Tai Chi evolved from. People don't understand Tai Chi. Tai Chi has very little to do with movement. It was originally energy transpositions, but things are forgotten in this age. It's left over from another cycle. So, and I'll be just bringing a lot of energy through, just for a couple minutes, and then we'll say goodnight, and you'll have a good journey, I'm sure. Why not? The way is light, So, let's meditate for a few minutes, okay? Good.